Hello and welcome back to another episode of LMS Cast. I'm joined by a special guest. His name is Mark Szymanski. You can find him at mjs.bio. Mark and I just met in person at WordCamp US. I came across Mark in many places, just on social media and videos and through Matt Medeiros and stuff. We're going to talk about content. We're going to talk about agency. We're going to talk about WordPress. We're going to talk about page builders. But first, welcome to the show, Mark.
Chris, it is an absolute pleasure. It was a pleasure to meet you in person. Been following your stuff for a while too, man. Love what you're doing. I cannot thank you enough for having me on the show here.
Yeah, you bet. Well, it's fun to chat. A thing happens here in kind of in WordPress land and digital entrepreneurship land, specifically kind of around WordPress, is you come across like other content creators, and we're kind of a niche within content. There's a lot of channels and podcasts and things that get a lot more views that are more mainstream, but this kind of niche world we live in of building sites for clients, building solutions, helping people build websites, particularly with WordPress, it's a niche. So whenever I see another content creator come on the scene, and you've been on the scene for a while, I'm like, I got to get that guy on the podcast. So I'm glad you're here.
Hell yeah.
When did you fall in love with creating content?
Oh man. I would say I've been creating YouTube videos for a while. I've kind of had like a little bit of I would say like a past life. Like when we, just as an example, when we bought our house here, I was like renovating some of it, and I was just like documenting it. I think one of the biggest things was I found, most people have heard like Gary Vaynerchuk when he was like really big. He's still obviously a popular guy, but it was just about like documenting, putting things on social media, just like building your personal brand. I have like all this written down somewhere, but I feel like it was probably in like 2016 or so, or maybe like while I was building the agency, like 2018. I was just like, I just want to document this, even just for myself. If nobody watches anything, I just kind of want to document it. So I started doing some of that, and then I started getting involved in WordPress in like 2018, building the agency. And very quickly, I was like, well, I'm learning things very rapidly, and I know there's other people out there that could potentially benefit from that. So I did a little bit of like tutorial content probably in like 2020, 2021, 22, but I was still like just working and trying to build websites for clients. And then just over a year ago, I would say, is when I discovered the WordPress community, which is a whole thing in and of itself. Like you could use WordPress for your entire life and never really jump into that realm, but I decided to, and I don't regret it. And that's when I started specifically making content with guys like Matt, and like whether it was technical, news oriented, business oriented, I've kind of just continued to try to find my way there. And yeah, I guess it's that's kind of been the trajectory to this point.
What kind of content do you like to consume?
Great question. I don't know if anybody else has gone through this, but I've noticeable, like if I look back I have like a big Excel spreadsheet of all like the big events that have happened in my life that I can remember that I feel like were pivotal, or just like in general. If I go back through there are actual periods of time that like I consume an unbelievable amount of content on a specific topic, right?
Yeah.
And I think I'm definitely not unique in this fact, but like I don't hear too many people talk about it that often. So like I remember, like I can't remember the order, but I remember I was in college and I was like, okay, well I really want to like know more about like money. Like maybe it was around the time I had my first job, so I went super deep into like finance content, like Dave Ramsey, Graham Stephan, like all these big YouTubers, right? And it's funny, and this, Chris, because like how these algorithms like kind of suck you in. As soon as you get into one thing, it's like you're gonna see videos forever until you get into another hobby or topic. So finance was a big one. That was probably a couple year stint. I feel like you go from not knowing anything to knowing like 75-85% of it in, like, if you really go hard, you can go like pretty quickly, maybe like 6 months to a year, and then way more than the average person. But then you kind of get burnt out and you're like, I'm tired of listening to this. So finance was one of those. General business stuff was one of those. More recently, it's been golf. Like it's just crazy. And then as soon as it's like, now I don't see really much any finance stuff, but I get the golf stuff. Obviously WordPress has been a huge part of that for the past year or two. But yeah, I mean those are my big ones right now. I would say right now it's last year it's been heavy on WordPress and the golf thing, because golf is a lifelong game similar to WordPress maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I can definitely relate to the binging on niche interest content for a period. Could be months,
oh yeah,
could be years.
it's
Um,
crazy.
and a funny thing happens. Like I remember before I, stepped out of my shell when I was just kind of building some websites for clients and trying to figure out how to build an online business. I would listen to Matt Medeiros' podcast, The Matt Report, and there was a handful of other WordPress podcasts, and I just binged all that stuff. And then ultimately, I got into that whole world and stepped into the community and started creating content myself. So it's fun to kind of listen to somebody, and then all of a sudden now you're talking to them, now you're shaking their
Yeah,
hand in an event.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's wild. It's so surreal. Like, yeah, I was like, we were talking before we went on, like, guys like Adam Prizer at WP Crafter and like Paul Charlton, WP Tuts. Like, I was, I'm 28 now. It's like, I think back, I was just looking at this like 7 years ago. I was like just 21, like still in college. And I'm like thinking about like websites and WordPress and stuff. And I'm watching their videos back then. And
Yeah.
then like, I go to WordCamp and like, it's cool. Like it's so cool in this community where you can just go to an event like that and you just start meeting the people that you've been, watching and all that stuff for so long. It is absolutely surreal.
Yeah, it's like finding your niche. Like if the niche is focused or small enough, I mean, even though WordPress is big
Yeah.
in terms of usage, the people that are really, I think Matt Medeiros used to call it small C, big C community, like the ones that are really on the inside. It's kind of small if you think about it.
Yeah.
So you can run into those people. Um,
Yeah.
what do you feel like your niche is in WordPress? Like if you had to pick one thing, what would it be? Or you're more in exploration phase?
Yeah, I think it's so big that I feel like I'm still exploring and actually had some good chats with people at WordCamp US and I think that I feel like there's two ways that you can do it. You could try to like find your own niche or you could just like put stuff out there and see if people kind of create one for you, so to speak. And I feel like with the latter option there, I feel like people have pretty much almost, pinned me as the guy that like is asking questions and is trying to explore because I'm like new here, but I also love making content. And I'm like just always like kind of like curious and everything. And some people kind of like express that to me. Jamie Marsden being one of them, just saying like, hey, just lean into the exploring thing. You know what I mean? Like just go in and just try to explore stuff and be curious. And people love that because they're kind of like you're documenting your journey. They're learning alongside you. And I think that comes really naturally to me. So I would say that that's probably my main niche right now. The only other things I would say are like I really, really, really do love like process and operation stuff because I think that there's a lot of people out there that I feel like I'm a very organized individual for the most part. And I think that that's one of the reasons I'm kind of entrepreneurial. So I think that there is definitely a place for that as well. Like kind of like I
Systems.
used exactly. Yeah. Systems kind of like setting. I love the setup phase. Like I love the idea of setting up new businesses, business ideas for people or, like the technical pieces of like getting everything, all your ducks in a row from like, yeah, I'm not a lawyer, but like kind of the legal standpoint, the financial standpoint, the marketing standpoint. I've often thought about like, oh, I could probably productize that somehow, but yeah, I would say that exploring and then kind of like building those pieces are just some of the things that I've thought of, over my time doing it.
A framework for that is like you can be the role model or the guru, but you can also
Mm-hmm.
be the researcher. And like both
Right.
those stories are cool. Like
Yeah.
you might be the role model and like, okay, these are the systems for this type of business or whatever. And then the researcher, uh, just it's fun to, go explore with Indiana Jones as they
Yeah.
search for whatever.
Exactly.
I will say one of the interesting things I've seen on YouTube, particularly, our videos don't get a ton of views, but the videos that have been most successful are when we do like a use case video, which involves tools made by lots of different companies usually. So, as a product company, I'm often like really focused on Lifter LMS. But if I actually like think about the person watching YouTube and somebody says, I want to build a website like Udemy with WordPress, and it's not just a lifter pitch video, and I'm bringing these other like affiliate partner management things like Siren and some web hosting considerations and email marketing CRM, and you build like an actual business like Udemy, which Udemy has 240 million in funding or something like that, and you could do it
Yeah.
for $1,000 with WordPress.
Yeah.
Like those videos get the most views. We had a similar thing with that one, got like 5,000 views. The how to build Netflix with WordPress got 9,000 views. So
Yeah.
if you're not married to like one company or brand, I think that's some of the most, at least in terms of reach, you can get. But
Absolutely.
individual product tutorials are also cool too. So I mean, you can go a million different directions.
Yeah, there's a lot of avenues. If you're trying to make content, which is kind of like where I'm at now, played the agency game. It's good. I mean, I love the clients that I've had, but I think that I'm more suited for, we're talking about offline. Like that's kind of, I think we're really more where I'm going. And I think, yeah, there's a weird thing, and I'll be completely transparent. Like I've always wanted to be like, okay, I have an agency and I have these tools set. Like this is my stack. I only want to talk about these tools and stuff like that. And while that does make sense, and I feel like it's like kind of admirable to do that, it's not super scalable. It's also like a little. I feel like it's definitely, it would be limiting myself, because there are, just because I don't use a tool or I didn't use a tool doesn't mean it's like not worth looking at. You know what I mean? Like it's what I've learned is it's not really that binary. I tried to simplify because I was running something and I don't want to have like 16 different stacks that I have to manage. But at the same time, like if people are, if you have like agency owners or DIYers or whatever, like looking at your content, you should probably tell them that there's some options out there too. That's the beauty of WordPress. So I'm always kind of mixed on that. And your point on the type of engaging content, that's 100% true. Like we're like a big community, so to speak. Like WordPress is big, but there's like a phenomenon where like the people that actually care about this stuff is kind of like smaller, and the people that like are researching and know where to look and know who like the sources are and everything like that is like kind of small. So trying to reel them in, as a content creator is, it can be difficult at times, but those types of things are great. Like I love the idea of like rebuilding, like a Netflix or whatever, because it shows the power of what we can do in WordPress. Because sometimes I think people don't get far enough into WordPress to understand how powerful it is. So it's a lot there. Yeah.
Let's talk about page builders. So like I came in before page builders, and I'm not a developer. I can't write a single line of code. So that's why I partner with developers and have team and stuff. But so for me, in the early days of WordPress, it was really hard to make a great looking site. You couldn't even do columns without writing code and stuff like that. And then for me, I was at a time when I discovered Beaver Builder. And so we started using Beaver Builder internally and making some tutorials with it and stuff like that, because it made it possible for non-developers to like build great looking sites. Elementor came on the scene, but I was already all in Beaver Builder, and a lot of people use Elementor. And lately we've kind of gone to more of the full site native editing approach, though we still very much appreciate page builders and their different takes on how to do things. But I have noticed like page builders get kind of tribal. Lots of companies and brands do, but there's a lot of friction in WordPress between page builders, classic editor, native, the new full site editing, Gutenberg thing. You've got newer builders on the scene like Bricks, Oxygen, Etch is getting ready to come. Like, what's your view on page builders and how do you think about it?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple things. Like the first bit of it is I came in right as Elementor had already existed, but I want to say maybe it was like at 1 million or 2 million, definitely less than 5 million like installs when I came in. So I came in, and to paint the picture, I come into WordPress and I'm like, okay, how do I work this thing? And then I see themes, and then I install like, one of the themes that were on there. I can't even remember what it was at this point, but it was just, I was looking at the pictures, you know what I mean? Like, cause, what do I want my website to look like? And I'm looking at the home pages and stuff, and I install a free one from the repo, and I'm like, okay, cool. And then I'm like, oh wait, I can't like move anything around. I can't like affect anything. I have to just like basically replace text, replace pictures. Well, what if I want like something, what if I'm looking at like a website that I like on the internet, like a Tesla website or something at the time? How can I build that in this theme? Like I didn't realize I had to become a developer. And then I found like an Elementor, and I was like, oh, wait a second, like this is way better of an experience. I wasn't even a designer. Like I'm not a designer. I just like want the freedom to do whatever. So I find Elementor, I realize what that is and how you can build and the templating system and all that sort of stuff. I'm like, okay, this is fantastic. So I used that from like 2018 to like 20, about a year ago, like 2023 or whatever. Great product and everything like that. But now that I'm looking back on it, as I like kind of switched more to bricks, and I would say that's kind of my main page builder. I want to get closer to core, and I'm on the advisory board for Etch. So there's like a lot. There's a lot happening. We're not nearly at the end of the cycle of all that. But it's interesting to look back. It's interesting to look back from a product perspective because this isn't. I don't think this is unique to WordPress page builders, but it's like the people that innovated, the Elementors, the Beaver builders, I wasn't even here for all of them, right? Like WP Bakeries, like they innovated, but now you have like a Bricks or an Oxygen or a Breakdance or whatever that we're able to just be like, okay, we can go so much further, so much quicker because we learned from all like any mistakes that like an Elementor would have made or whatever. And I just feel like that's really interesting to see it all. Now, it's a little unfortunate that it gets a little tribal at times. I wish that like in an ideal world, software wouldn't like divide us like that.
Yeah.
But I also think it's kind of like human nature. Like people really enjoy the things that they use and that are honestly, and for a lot of these people, like a Bricks, for instance, is literally driving their livelihood. Like,
Yeah.
it's, I mean, so you can kind of you gotta kind of understand that like, okay, there's a reason that they're so like passionate about it. But it's, I don't know. I don't know how we like change that or anything, but I think that the page building space has been quite interesting for the last 7 or so years. And I'm really interested to see how core continues to evolve because I do think that like if we can do things, I've always said like if the core of WordPress could for some way, you wave a magic wand and it could do all those things, I think a lot of people would go there because they're not just using page builders for no reason. They're using page builders because it's easy to do the things that they want to do. So I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball, but it's always a fun topic. The whole idea of page builders and just WordPress in general regarding that. Yeah.
You made a good point. Like earlier, you said like training around your agency stack. So when you get comfortable with your tools or your form plugin or whatever page builder you use, it's just you just kind of get used to it. But you like to explore and stuff too, which is great.
Yeah.
I think having a percentage of your time where you're just testing and trying things you got to stay sharp. It's really easy to get stuck in this world and not evolve in the sense that you have to evolve. But I mean, there's innovation happening everywhere. Like explore it a little bit.
Yeah, it's tough when you got to be careful how complacent you get. I feel like in that, and one quick like example of what you said there is I never right away when I was in the agency life, maybe some of the listeners can like empathize with it. As soon as I got into the agency life, like really, and I was like actually trying to like build websites for multiple clients, all that sort of stuff, immediately, depending on who you're talking to, you're gonna get requests to do like really intricate stuff. Like when I say intricate, I mean like I know people that don't use like dynamic data, and like that's fine. If they don't have clients that don't need to use that or what, like they don't use custom post types, they don't use any of that. But the first project that I had, I didn't know how to do any of that. And I look back on it now, I'm like, that's a perfect example. Like some sort of like website with like articles, white papers, like just announcements, like just a bunch of those things, right? And I look back and I'm like, wow, I really enjoyed trying to figure that out, even though I had no idea what the hell I was doing at the time. And I was trying to just use like taxonomies and all this crazy stuff. But I look and I'm like, that was the thing that I was naturally driven to do. I was naturally driven to see like where WordPress could go, like how much I could do with it, like with dynamic data and conditions and all the sort of like logic and everything. And there's a model that a lot of agencies have where they just want to pump out like the same like quick brochure websites for, a few $1,000, $5,000, whatever. And I am like, by all means, they should do that if they want to do that. But it just never like spoke to me. So I was always in this spot where like I wanted to do agency stuff, I guess, but I wanted to do really complex stuff. And it's very hard to do complex stuff by yourself at scale and for the amount of money that you need to be paid in order to do those things. So I was finding myself just wanting to do complex things, but at the same time, like it just didn't, the calculation and the way I had it set up just didn't all work. Like I didn't think I could scale it super long term. So I've kind of pivoted slightly because this is kind of like a new place that I could be in, where I could constantly explore, provide value, and potentially do like website builds as well. But I really just like building my own stuff. Really, I mean, that's and educating people along the way. So it's kind of where
That's
I'm at.
fun. That that kind of happened to me. I was just kind of naturally decent at marketing and sales, and I get a project, and they're like, "Can you do this?" And I'm like, "I can figure that out." And then I'd go try to
Exactly.
find a tool. If I couldn't, oh, I think I might need to hire a developer to help me with this. So I do
Right.
that. Oh, this is beyond my design
Right.
capabilities. I need to get some real designers on board here. And next thing you know, I had a big agency, but
Yep.
it was fun the whole time. And when you
Mm-hmm.
look back on it, it seems kind of wild. Like, wow, you said yes to a lot of stuff that you had no clear path on how to get there, but you got them there.
Right.
So about being resourceful, I guess.
100%. Yeah. Definitely.
Um, let's talk a little bit more about how your like YouTube process. Like, how do you think about that? Because I know a lot of people, some of this audience are like course creators, and they're like, I need a YouTube channel, um, and they need to build process around how to do that, how to commit to it, how to like source topics and things like that. Tell us
Yeah.
about your YouTuber evolution.
Yeah. So, um, I was, like I said, I was making YouTube videos for a while, like just like older stuff that just didn't have anything to do with WordPress during like I want to say like the COVID lockdown times and all that. Like I was actually like just doing a daily live stream, just like at night, just like at my desk, just kind of going over like my daily recap of kind of what I was doing and thinking about some stuff. Nobody was watching at all, but I just really enjoyed that.
What do you like
So
about going live?
I have no idea. I think you know why I like going live. I think I like going live because there is zero editing. Like I just
Yeah.
don't like I hate video. I mean, I don't hate video editing, but I really dislike it. I'm not a video editor, so I don't like the idea of like taking the time to do it. And I never hired an editor, so like, I don't take the time. The idea of trying to do it and then edit it. I feel like that's just tough. The other thing is this is super counterintuitive, kind of. I feel so much less pressure when I'm live than when I'm trying to make a pre-recorded video,
Okay.
because I'm in this mindset when I make the pre-recorded video, especially if it's for another channel or for a brand or something, like it has to be like good. Like when I mean good, I mean like almost perfect. I'm not
Polished.
stuttering. And I
Yeah.
just feel like I get in more of a flow, as you could tell here, because I love to talk. I just get in more of a flow when it's live. And I don't know. I just have it's just, I don't know. Maybe it's just a skill I have or something like that. But that's one of the things is I'm just like way less pressure when I just like, hey, let's just go live. Let's talk like you're talking to somebody. That was the thing I love about WordCamp US. It's like we watch everybody on YouTube, on X or whatever, and then we get to talk to them in person. And a lot of people are the exact same. It's
Yeah.
just, you're just talking to them in real life. It's like you're on a live stream with them. I don't know. It's kind of cool. But I think that's a big part of it. I think there's, some people doing it really, really well, yourself included. Kevin Geary, obviously, like I was watching his live streams before I started doing mine. I think the live aspect is really valuable because if you're trying to build any semblance of an audience or community, they can engage with you one on one. And again, like in a digital age where we don't get super opportunities to like meet up like all together like we did like this past week, it's very, very vital to like build those connections. And I think the live setting is a really good one. It's a little different than the YouTube comments. You know what I mean? The live chat is a little more synchronous, I guess. So that's a huge thing. As far as like the video content that's not live, I would say that my strategy there is kind of pivoting to a degree, trying to go more like affiliate and sponsorship routes while also covering any sort of like news stuff and things like that, and educating just in general. But it's just if you're going to play the content game, you literally have to be cognizant of making money. So without like hopefully shilling stuff, you know what I mean? Like there's a fine line there. So yeah, that's kind of where I don't have a hard and fast answer on the process for the video side necessarily, because I'm still feeling it out. But yeah, it's kind of the overall process I would say at this point.
What gets you excited about Etch?
So I think the thing that gets me excited about Etch is, one, I met some of the developers this weekend, Andre and Mateo of Kevin's team, and I love those guys. And I think the thing that I'm most excited about Etch is one, I do believe in Kevin and his team. They've done great stuff. They have a track record. They actually care about moving thing forward, regardless of whether you agree with any of the approaches. I feel like they're a team that like they want to do better. They want WordPress to continue to succeed. They're bought in. They're not just here for whatever. The bigger thing though, I think about Etch is more little meta, is that I'm actually really excited that it's not like a page builder, like another page builder, so to speak. And that's no disrespect to Elementor's, Bricks, like, whoever. It's not disrespect there. It's just like my thing was when I moved to Bricks, I was like, okay, this is better in my opinion for what I was doing than Elementor was, but it's not really there yet because it's still like super, like it's still like disconnected, proprietary. Like the stuff is in the database rather than flat file, like whatever you want to say, like flat files, like whatever you want to say. So I'm like, I want to use, what I mean? Like I want to use the core experience because I feel like most of the time the native way is the best way from a cohesive experience, I guess, right? Like if you have an iPhone and you use like a native Apple like app versus like a third party app, it's probably gonna be better generally. Like just as like a silly, analogy there. So I want to use that, but at the same time, like it's not there as far as like everything you can do with the page builder. So what I think, and again, like we're in the building stage of Etch right now, right? The team is building it. I think I know what the vision is, and the vision is to build a UI and extend the block editor and extend like, the core piece of it that will, create a better working experience, a better unified development environment, everything like that, but also not like lock things away. Like the idea would be that you can build with Etch and you can just take it away and you're still good. There are probably some other products that are kind of doing that to an extent, but I don't think we're talking about like custom. We're talking about custom blocks, like core blocks, but they're not like, we're not dropping in blocks that you can't utilize. Like if you get rid of it, then those blocks are gone, stuff like that. And I don't know every single detail because I'm not like 100%. Like the limiting. I have a limited experience within Direct Core, which is one of my next endeavors here. We're gonna dive in there full throttle, but yeah, that's just. Those are some of the big reasons I'm excited about it, and we'll see how it goes.
What are you excited about, or how do you use AI with websites?
So I've used ChatGPT. Pretty sure I have a subscription to ChatGPT and Claude currently, and I've used. The cool thing, okay, so I made a couple videos about Claude. So Claude, I love like their artifacts thing where you can like type it in and then like it'll give you a big synopsis. It'll give you the code. You can see it right there. Sometimes if it's like a website or whatever, like it'll even run it. Like if it's like some HTML or whatever. But what I really love about Claude is you can build like literally plugins with the thing. Like if you give it the right documentation, you could create like a custom plugin that adds like conditions to like bricks or something or, whatever. So like, again, a couple of videos were like, when I'm live on YouTube, like reach out to the YouTube API and, make a condition that like dynamically shows or hides this section on my website that says, hey, I'm live. So something like that, right? Now it's tough, not to go off on a tangent with the AI thing, but it's tough because if you're not like a developer, you have to really like have a developer's touch to make sure that it actually works and like debug and all that sort of stuff. But it's normally pretty good, especially if you feed it the right information. So I would say that's a big thing that I've used, that I've experimented using AI with for websites. Maybe some image generation too. The tough part I feel like we're in right now, and it might level out or might continue to just exponentially go crazy, is everything's moving so fast. Like I'm wondering like, hey, what's the best model? Is it Claude? Is it GPT? Like, and then they come out with new models and it's like, well, where am I getting the best information and things like that from? So, copywriting, image generation, code generation, there's just a ton out there. And then the one other thing, I feel like this is a little bit of a less talked about one, is like something like 11 Labs where you can like clone your voice and you can clone different things about that. Now we start to get a little scary, as far as the AI thing goes. But I think that I would really love, because if you had a community and those people like want your knowledge and they watch your YouTube videos and they see this other stuff, your time eventually as your community scales, you have, and you know this, you have less time because you have more people seeking that time, right? There'd be a really cool thing. I know a couple people that are already trying to create like AIs of themselves, like AI knowledge bases, and you
Mhm.
could basically chat, like you could chat with Chris, you could chat with Mark, and it's like you're basically gonna get
Trained
similar
on
answers.
all your content. Yeah.
I would love that. You know who had that first is not exactly this, but like you could search anything from all of Gary V's content, like the Gary V search engine. I don't know. This is kind of, he like announced it, but a long time ago. But I don't know how much it ever went. But it's probably crazier now because it's way easier. He had it before, like anybody was talking about this. You could search any word, any phrase. Like where did I hear that? And it would search like all of his TikTok, his Instagram, YouTube, or whatever, and it was amazing. I was like, I need that when I have more content because again, you know this. I know you know this too. Like we run in the same circle of content here. Like there's so much good content that is deep, like buried, and it's just how it is. Like it's buried in the channel that's really good, and people would care about it. How do we resurface that? How do we recycle that? How do we reuse that? And then that all of that coupled with this is I need to leverage this more. The problem with the live content is not everyone wants to sit through a 2-hour thing, or they don't know, right? That's an investment that they're not willing to make. We need the clips. The clips are like of the utmost magnitude, and there are some really good AI tools that are doing that now. I'm just not leveraging them well enough. Like Opus Clip, I think, is one that I've tried. I don't know. That was a big rant there, but I would say that there's a lot of these tools that are actually just taking what people were doing manually and just making it easier. And the people that leverage them are just going to get pretty far ahead because they're going to have way more efficiency built in.
And that's a reason to become a content creator.
Yeah.
I joke that I started this podcast around the same time as Tim Ferriss. So, which I did 10 years ago. And I've interviewed a lot of people with a lot of great stuff, a lot of great conversations. But it's like discovering the old stuff is really hard for the regular user.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, I think 2,000 videos on our YouTube channel if you count in the lives. You know, there's a lot of content.
A lot of good content in there, 100%.
And then if the AI could like mix and match, like, oh, well, when he was interviewing Mark, he said this about this topic and this other person and this other person, and amalgamate that into like it's going to get really interesting. It already is, but it's going to get really interesting. But that's why it's important to create original content.
100%. Yep.
Awesome. Yep. I wanted to ask you for the agencies out there, from your agency experience, I know you're kind of doubling down on content, but what was working for you in terms of a niche? Like what types of sites, like e-commerce, WooCommerce sites, Main Street businesses, membership sites? Like what were some of your favorite agency projects that paid well and the client was really happy with?
Yeah, so the one I would say, I kind of go a couple different ways here. I would say the one that I fell into was more of like complex sites, so to speak. Like, so the biggest, like one of the biggest projects that I kind of did was like, I did a website for like a wealth advising firm, basically, kind of like a redesign, rebuild and stuff like that. And then they were like, okay, well, we want to take all of our knowledge. It's a really meta thing that happened here. We want to take all of our knowledge that we have and we've built in our firm, and we want to create another website, another brand that teaches and educates other wealth advisors. So I'm like, all right, that sounds pretty cool. So it was like, and this was years ago, a few years ago at this time. And it was like, okay, we're going to create a website that's going to be obviously members only, marketing side on the front, but obviously like the actual website is members only. It's subscription based. Everything that you do on a day-to-day basis, Chris, I'm sure like you know, like a learning management platform, right? Yeah. Kind of like they actually initially pitched it as we were like looking and researching other things. They were looking at some other ones, and like it was using like almost like a buddy boss type platform where there's a lot of like social pieces too. Cause this is again, a couple years ago at this point, maybe you go with like a circle, or maybe you do like a lifter element. Like there's so many options, right? So what do you do? What features do you want and not want? Cause that's huge, right? Like if you don't want the social stuff, then maybe you don't put all that overhead in there. Right? You already have to have subscriptions, memberships, the e-commerce piece, the actual courses. you know, just custom posts and stuff like that because there was a podcast involved too. And it's just like, it's a lot of stuff. It's like literally just take all the buzzwords and just throw it in. And I loved building that. Like I loved the challenge of building that. But the problem is that I ran into, maybe the agency owners won't run into this. The problem is it was one of those projects where I had not done stuff like that to the nth degree yet. And when you're in that spot, you don't know how much to charge, and you don't know how much of a pain in the ass that's going to be to figure all that out. So that is a real hurdle. So always charge more, but it's difficult. It's a double-edged sword. It's hard to say more and then not get it because it did teach me a hell of a lot, and I know all that now. But once you have like 1 or 2 reps, then you start to kind of feel it. So I don't know if that was exactly an answer, but that would be kind of the niche that I found myself in, was those more complex ones. What I did also have though was more, and I would actually recommend people try to more go this way, is more repeatable things that still kind of potentially scratch that itch for you. And I found like probably the best client project that I've had was one of my more recent ones, where it was like a small to medium sized business in a industry that makes money.
Yeah.
Meaning like nothing like, oh, your buddy has an idea for a apparel store. Let's spin them up a WooCommerce. Terrible idea. Like just tell them to go to Shopify or something. That's probably blasphemous, but like just, yeah, be careful. Just tread lightly there. What I'm saying is like something in like a tried and true thing. Like lawyers, obviously people have different ideas about like whether you should build sites, like, how that industry goes, but like lawyers or like maybe doctors or like oil and gas, like engineering, like those types of things, those big ones like that, where like that is an industry where like in order to succeed there, you have to be making money. Like if they've been in business for 50 years, 10, 15, 20, 50, like this company I was dealing with, like 50 years, like they're established, you know what I mean?
And they're probably technologically behind. Right?
Exactly. Yeah. They're established and they need you and they have some money. Now, I'm not saying like charge them an arm and a leg, like go crazy, like don't like gouge them. But I'm saying like if you want to sell like $10,000 to $20,000 websites or more, I feel like if I was gonna like redo everything, I'd probably like focus on those types of people. And we could talk about how you get those types of people because there's a million ways for that too. But I'm saying like those are the ones I would really look out for, because the startup game is tough. The the new age businesses are tough. Even younger businesses, younger people are tough just because, like they're either starting out or they the whole WordPress thing could be like kind of confusing. Like it's just, those are the ones that I feel like are really, really good because I just feel like they fit extremely well, and they normally have the money to pay, and they're normally pretty chill people. I mean, that's super generalization there, but if you manage that process well, I think that's probably been some of my best experiences, to be honest.
Yeah. I'm smiling and laughing a little bit because Matt Medeiros just dropped a comment. I don't know if you saw it.
Yeah.
I can tell you guys are friends. So,
this guy.
Yeah, you're breaking the flow, Matt. You're breaking the flow.
Come on, man.
One of the things that's interesting, and I can almost guarantee it's the same for you, when you get inside these businesses and they're asking you to do stuff, all of a sudden you're adding so much value. They're not just saying like build these features. You start getting into their business models, how they get customers, how they get clients. And this thing happens where you become the trusted advisor, and sometimes it feels like I know more about this person's business than they do. Maybe not the subject matter expertise of the engineering or the dental or whatever, but in some ways that's kind of fun to get in there. It's like there's something about that. That's like the entrepreneurial brain just kind of kicks in, and you have the technology tools at your fingertips.
It's actually, honestly, incredibly dangerous, I feel like, because you're literally describing almost every single website project I ever did, because this is what happens. It's like if you're an entrepreneur, you're like a freelancer, what have you, right? So you obviously, if you want to continue to make your business better, you're always thinking in the back of your mind, how can I make this better, more efficient, whatever. So then we're in this strange place, right? Like if we were a business and our business was concrete, like concrete pouring. We walk up to the place, we pour the concrete, we get the hell out of there. But
Right.
this is like so much different. We're like borderline business advisors and business coaches, at least marketing coaches
Yeah.
to a degree, right? If you're
Yeah.
doing this like
Like, what's the
super
purpose of a
seriously.
website? Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So and this is the other thing is I never the very first website that I did, I always pitched on build, like the development and the maintenance, like the hosting, website care plan, whatever you want to call it. I never did the thing where I handed off. Now you could do that if you want, like, by all means, but I never did that. I always went with the relationship based approach. In retrospect, in hindsight, it's like that's totally good and fine, but you have to like almost approach those engagements as we are not just the website people. Like
Yeah.
it's such a weird thing because now you're like, again, I bring up the oil and gas thing. It's like, and you said they're probably technologically behind. I'm like, do you guys have a CRM you want me to integrate this website with? And they're like, no.
What's a CRM? Yeah.
So I'm like,
Yeah.
and it's not a disrespectful thing when I say that. It's just like you guys are. It's mind numbing when you look at something and you're like, these people are so successful, and they could have been like they could even be like way further ahead from like an efficiency standpoint and things like that, and just the stuff that they could have built into here. So it's like it's tough because then you get, if you're a person that wants to help, yeah, I mean you could take it as a real big sales opportunity too and make money from that. But if you want to help, you're like, now you're no longer just building websites. And this is probably how businesses evolve like this to other service offerings, because you're not just building the website, you're not just maintaining it, you're also trying to like develop like a marketing strategy and go through all that. And I will tell you this, as somebody who never really built out my agency that much, it was pretty much just me, maybe a couple subcontractors at times, like, at the most. It's very difficult to do all that by yourself. It's borderline impossible because now I'm like trying to think about, it's almost like trying to run the marketing agency for like multiple different businesses. And
Yeah.
it's just, it's not scalable, which is why I think I defaulted back. Just let me try to run my own business and do my own stuff rather than serve clients directly. Could do a little bit of that, but you're exactly right with all that. It's crazy.
In some ways, though, that's how you kind of get practice and reps in. So when you kind of figure out your own path, you've been advising all these people and helping all these people, that it just kind of clicks in. I mean, it clicked in for me with e-learning. I'm like, oh, this is my niche. Because I did all kinds of sites, and then I fell in love with the niche, and then built a tool that market wanted and just stayed focused on that. But it's a process of discovery.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier, if somebody is like, that makes a lot of sense, well-funded business, technologically behind, actively looking for help, how does one get those clients? Like, what should they do?
Yeah, so once you start making YouTube content on website stuff, that's inevitably going to be what happens. Your DMs are going to be flooded with that type of thing, which is that's a good question, and that's going to continue to happen. And LinkedIn is crazy for that. If Kurt's still here in the chat, he knows how the LinkedIn DM game goes. I would say, so I tried like different ways. You could go on the SEO route, right? I know that was huge for a very long time. I never really dove in. Actually, I did do that for like 8 months. I was like working directly with an SEO consultant. The problem with SEO is like, even if you're working with an SEO consultant, you still need to do a lot of work that I was not doing, to either create content or just like make sure that you're ranking in general. And I don't know. And now we're at this new age where like everything's kind of being taken over with AI. So I don't really know if I'd recommend that. The biggest thing that worked for me is finding, every time you hear an answer like this, it's like stupid simple. It's just, you have to do it. Finding, like the client that we have in question, finding a service provider in a similar vertical that either doesn't build websites or does build websites by default. The one that I always use is like an IT provider. I do not want to be an IT provider. I'm not going to be an IT provider. The closest I get is like managing, maybe DNS and stuff like that, but we're not going to deal with email and all that sort of stuff. So you find somebody that's similar like that. IT one is just the one that I always say. And you say, hey, do your clients that, like you set up the email for and the computers and all that sort of stuff, did they ask you for websites, or do they end up ever wanting websites or anything like that? And then most of the time they're probably going to say yes. And then if they're, depending on how they are, they're probably gonna be like, because I'm just speaking from experience, the IT provider will be like, oh yeah, we just set them up with like simple Wix websites or whatever. And you're gonna be like, no, let's not do that anymore. Why don't you, when you, next time you get that question, why don't you just send them to me? I will close them. I will sell them a website and I will give you 10% of all the money I make off of them for a calendar year or something like that, right? I'm also not a fan of like just handing the leads away like bi-directionally or whatever, because that gets out of hand really quickly. If you give somebody 10 leads and they don't give you any, it's like it's just messy. So I love the idea. I love the idea of like taking that referral affiliate program, whatever you want to call it, into like the service space, because it's worked for me. Like that's literally how I got that client. Was they were a customer of the IT firm. The IT firm said, hey, their website, we built them a website a while ago. They need a new one because they're scaling or whatever. We don't want to do it, or we can't do it, or we, whatever, it's just not in our thing here. Let's set you up, and then bada bing, bada boom. It's not going to work every time, but that is the one that I feel like produces the warmest leads, and then you just have the best thing right out of the gate because you already have like literally a referral, like somebody that's referring you. The only other thing I would say is, if I would also going back, I would probably just make content directed directly at my audience, which I never really did. I always made like more technical content. I would just say like, here's how to make your website better or whatever. And then at the end be like, hey, you don't want to do any of this shit. I know you don't. Just ask us. You know what I mean? Like something like that. But I really love that referral idea. I really love it. I think it works very well because everybody likes making money from like a genuine referral. So
Yeah. But my little add-on to that with referrals is like, think about your customer journey and what are they doing right before they're ready for a website. So for example, if you do Main Street businesses and you're starting like local web design shop and just doing your town or your city, find the lawyers that help people incorporate a new business name or idea, and then be like, okay, I've registered my name. Now they get the .com. Now they need a website. So like get a relationship going with that lawyer as an example.
100%.
Mark, this has been an awesome conversation. I appreciate it. It's good to chat. That's the cool thing, man. WordCamp, sometimes it's hard to have a long conversation. So I'm glad we deferred to here. And how else can people connect with you? You've got mjs.bio. Check out your live streams. What else?
Yeah, I mean, if you just go to, I've kind of curated for people, and the name's hard to spell. So if you just go to mjs.bio, then you can see kind of like a little link in bio type page with all the stuff that I got going on, all my social links. You can subscribe to the newsletter if you want. But yeah, I mean, the main thing is every Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern, I'm live on YouTube and other platforms. I multi-stream. I got YouTube videos on the channel. And then, lot more things in the pipeline. But just go over there and subscribe, and you'll know as soon as I figure out what I'm doing next. So, but Chris, this has been absolutely amazing, man. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah. Thanks for coming, Mark.
Oh, yeah.